can include anything starting from fatigue, increased sensitivity to cold, dry skin, weight gain, puffy face, thinning head. It can also include to low IQ and mental disability, especially in children.
Health disorders are serious, potentially life-threatening conditions that affect a person's emotional and physical health. They are not just a fad or a phase. People do not just care or catch an health disorder for a period of a time. They are real, complex, and devastating conditions that can have serious consequences of health, productivity, and relationships. Hello and welcome to the Honest Talk by Freak Folks. I'm Harsh Pandey. For this particular session, we have with us very special guest today, Mr. Karthik Reddy Answer is a passionate and young public health professional graduate from BITS with a demonstrated history of working in the field of nutrition, health, and micronutrient deficiencies. He is currently working as an executive program officer at ICCIDD, an organization working towards sustainable elimination of iodine deficiency disorder. He is providing analytical and technical support for system strengthening and quality improvement to ensure continuity, effectiveness, and sustainability of the universal salt iodization program in India and South Asian countries. So first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Harsh, for such wonderful intro. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's our pleasure too. So moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is health consequences of iodine deficiency. So my very first request to you is, please explain to our viewers what is iodine deficiency and how it is actually measured, what are some of its serious impact, and which disorders are caused by iodine deficiency.
Before talking about iodine deficiency, I'll try to explain few basic concepts.
Sure.
We all know that eating high quality food is essential in nourishing the body and protecting it.
Right.
Any substance that provides nourishment essential for the maintenance of life and for its growth is called a nutrient. Nutrient can be divided into two groups, macronutrients and micronutrients.
Yeah.
The word macro refers to large, which means macronutrients are the nutrients a body needs in larger amounts, namely carbohydrates, protein, and fat. These nutrients provide our body with energy or calories. Water is also a macronutrient in the sense that the body needs it in larger amounts. But unlike other macronutrients, it doesn't contain carbon or yield energy. On the other hand, micro refers to small, which means micronutrients are the nutrients our body needs in smaller amounts, which are commonly referred to as vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are necessary for energy production, immunity, and other functions. Meanwhile, minerals play an important role in growth, bone health, fluid balance, and several other processes. Examples of minerals include sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iodine, iron, etc. Our body creates many nutrients on its own, but those it cannot make are called essential. Our body doesn't manufacture essential minerals. We get them from our diet. These minerals actually come from rocks, soil, and water.
Okay.
And they get absorbed as the plants grow or by animals as the animal eat the plants. Iodine is one such essential micronutrient whose role is to ensure proper thyroid function. Iodine helps to regulate the production of thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, triiodothyronine T3 and thyroxine T4. Now coming to your question, iodine deficiency disorders, IDD, refers to all consequences of iodine deficiency in a population that can be prevented by ensuring adequate intake of iodine. IDDs are linked to iodine deficient soil. Iodine is generally present at the top layer of the soil. Due to glaciations, flooding, and deforestation, the iodine present at the top layer of the soil is constantly leached. This in turn leads to deficiency of iodine in crop grown on iodine deficiency soil, with consequently low iodine in the diets of livestock and humans. Iodine deficiency is generally diagnosed across population and not specifically for individuals. Since iodine is released from the body through urine, the best way to determine iodine deficiency across a large population is to measure the amount of iodine in the urine samples. Iodine deficiency is defined as the median urinary iodine concentration, MUIC, less than 100 microgram per liter in a non-pregnant population or less than 150 microgram per liter in a population of pregnant women. In simpler words, iodine deficiency is lack of sufficient iodine in the diet, which can lead to inadequate production of thyroid hormone. In the past, iodine deficiency was thought to cause only goiter and tetanism. However, over the last quarter of the century, it has become increasingly clear that the iodine deficiency leads to much wider spectrum of disorders. The spectrum of diseases include goiter, cretinism, hypothyroidism, brain damage, abortion, stillbirth, mental retardation, hearing, and speech impairments. It is important to note that the majority of the consequences of IDD are invisible and irreversible, but at the same time, they are completely preventable.
Okay. Sir, I think you have actually, in the beginning, you have cleared some of the basic terms, and I'm very happy that you have actually told our viewers, those who are completely new to this topic. And sir, my next question to you, or rather it's a kind of a request to you, is what do you believe, what are the signs and symptoms of iodine deficiency disorder, and how do we improve the impact of iodine deficiency disorders prevention in India and beyond?
It is important to note that thyroid hormone acts on almost every cell in the body. It helps in physical growth, optimum mental development, regulation of body metabolism, heat generation, and maintenance of body temperature. Its functioning is everywhere. If we look into the average daily requirement of iodine per person, it's only 150 micrograms that fits on the tip of a single hand strain. You will be surprised to know that the lifetime requirement of iodine is only 5 grams. I repeat, 5 grams, which is equal to 1 tablespoon.
Right.
Food is the main source of iodine. Food items such as fish, meat, dairy products, vegetables contain iodine in them. As already discussed in the earlier question, if soil is deficient in iodine, then the food sources are likely to be deficient in iodine. Right. On the other hand, high amounts of iodine is present in seaweeds and sea fish. Unfortunately, in India, only a small portion of the population consumes iodine-rich seafood, and that too in very, very small quantity. But 90% of the human development occurs between 3rd month of pregnancy to 3rd year of life. Iodine deficiency results in permanent brain damage. This brain damage can be prevented by correcting iodine deficiency during and before pregnancy. It is shocking to know that iodine deficiency affects about 2 billion people across the world. According to WHO, iodine deficiency in fetal life and early childhood remains the single most important and preventable cause of mental retardation globally. When we talk about IQ points, the IQ points, we generally talk, IQ score of children living in an iodine deficient environment is nearly 13.5 IQ points less than those living in iodine sufficient environment. Shocking, isn't it?
Yes.
I have made few calculations for better understanding.
Okay.
A 1 point increase in nation's average IQ is associated with a 0.11 increase in gross domestic product, which we call it as GDP. Therefore, a 13.5 IQ point increase can result in a 1.49 increase in GDP. The GDP of India for the year 2019-2020 was around 2.87 trillion USD. Hence, 1.49% increase would amount around 42.76 billion USD, which is equivalent to, shockingly, 3.14 lakh crore rupees. I repeat, it's equivalent to 3.14 lakh rupees. Now, coming to the general signs and symptoms of iodine deficiency, can include anything starting from fatigue, increased sensitivity to cold, dry skin, weight gain, puffy face, thinning hair. It can also include to low IQ and mental disability, especially in children. At a population level, iodine deficiency disorder can be prevented by the iodization of food products or the water supply. In practice, this actually achieved by universal standardization, which is currently going in India.
All right. Sir, my next question to you is, or it's a kind of a request to you is, please explain to our viewers, is there any specific test we can go through, any set of a procedure to know that this person is suffering from iodine deficiency disorder? How actually we know that how much means a deficiency is in body?
Yeah, we can know it from general signs and symptoms of iodine deficiency disorders. As I already mentioned, these signs include ranging from fatigue, constipation, dry skin, weight gain, puffy face, etc. It's generally known from we can't actually know it for a particular person. In general, we know it for a population, and which is measured by MUIC, median urinary iodine concentration.
All right. So my next question to you is, again, it's a kind of a request to you. Please explain to our viewers the importance of universal salt iodization. I have seen your profile. When I got yesterday that you have worked on this part. So I really want to know about this. Please explain to our viewers.
Sure. Before explaining universal salt iodization, I wanted to explain something else.
Okay.
There's something called food fortification.
Okay.
Fortification is the process of adding essential micronutrient to food. The goal of food fortification is to increase the intake of particular micronutrient in a targeted population. Now, salt iodization is nothing but fortifying or adding iodine to salt in minute amounts. When we think about salt, what comes to our mind? It's not only about the taste. Salt, because of its unique characteristics, is an ideal fortification vehicle because it's a commodity consumed universally by everyone.
Right.
Whether it's poor or rich, male or female, people living in urban or rural, young or old, whether it's summer or winter, it doesn't matter. Everyone consumes salt.
Right.
So, salt has been chosen as a vehicle for iodization. Universal salt iodization is the main strategy to eliminate iodine deficiency across the world.
Okay.
In the last 2.5 decades, since salt iodization was scaled up in India, salt iodization has contributed to saving approximately 4 billion IQ points in India. Salt iodization will save approximately 325 million IQ points annually in India if we achieve the target of greater than 90% coverage with adequately iodized salt. Universal Salt Iodization Program is recognized as one of the biggest public health success stories of India and the world. 300 million IQ points are saved every year in India alone, and 4 billion IQ points across the world because of this policy, as I already mentioned earlier. The coverage of adequately iodized salt for sustainable elimination of iodine deficiency is still progressing, but it hasn't reached its target of 100% coverage in India. As per the latest data reported in the India Iodine Survey, IIS, which happened in 2018 and 19, conducted by AIMS, Nutrition International, ICC, IDD, and Kantar, 76.3% of population in India consume adequately iodized salt. The estimated population in India as of 2021 is around 1.39 billion. When we calculate 76.3% of this population, it comes to around 1.06 billion. 1.06 billion. A still significant percent of the population continue to consume inadequately iodized salt or nil iodized salt. Thus, there is still a need to reach the unreached population and cover the last mile of the Universal Salt Iodization Program in India, which happens to be one of the biggest public health success story, not only in India, but across the world.
Correct.
I think I'm clear with you.
Yeah, actually, you have actually explained it from very basic level, and you have made it things very clear and very easy to understand. This I should appreciate this. So my next question to you is: what we have seen is health is well placed in Sustainable Development Goals. The health goal SDG 3 is broad: ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. The SDG declaration emphasizes that to achieve the overall health goal, we must achieve universal health coverage and access to the quality healthcare. No one must be left behind. So, in your opinion, what are the actual biggest challenges to achieving this goal for countries like India?
This is a very good question. As you mentioned about SDG 3, which talks about good health and well-being, so far, India made great progress against several leading causes of deaths and diseases. If we look at the average life expectancy, it has risen from 59 years in 1990 to 70 years in 2019. Also, infant and maternal mortality rates have been declining. In my opinion, emerging challenges such as non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in the recent times will be the biggest challenge to achieving the goal of good health and well-being. In India, nearly 6 million people die from NCDs every year. We all know that the sudden spike in NCDs can be due to unhealthy diet, lack of physical activity, and use of tobacco and alcohol products. The solution for these problems can be as simple as being physically active, at least a simple morning walk for 30 minutes, choosing healthy diets over junk food, saying no to tobacco products, reducing the consumption of alcohol, etc. But still, we don't want to address this issue. India is a land of unity in diversity. In a country like India, with a population about 139 crores, as I already mentioned, everything changes within few kilometers. When you consider the language changes, the culture changes, food habits changes, lifestyle changes, climate changes, geography changes, everything changes. So every problem has its own solution and it will be region specific. It's up to the mindset of the people how they wanted to tackle these issues. For example, 10 out of 17 sustainable development goals are related to iodine deficiency disorders. The solution for preventing such disorders can be as simple as consuming adequately iodized salt. I'm sure that the solution for other problems can also be simple. I strongly believe that the first step towards change is awareness, and the second step is acceptance. When people are aware about a particular disease and symptom associated, this itself plays a vital role in screening and early detection. When they accept the facts about its consequences, they are more likely to take action to prevent it happening to them. If everyone realizes that the change they wanted to see in the world will begin within them, it is definitely possible to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages, as you have mentioned in your question. And universal health coverage in our country will no longer be a dream.
Right. No, I think again you have actually cleared and mentioned very good points that it all starts from the self-acceptance, and we actually need to understand and need to actually focus on these things. So my next question to you is, what we have seen in the past and in this COVID-19 pandemic, that social workers have an immense impact on the communities and the people that occupy them. Social workers can empower communities by encouraging individuals to take an active role in shaping social services, providing educational programs, and enabling economic independence long term. So in your opinion, how we can motivate our youth for social work and development programs?
Your question suddenly reminded me about a quote which says, "A tree's beauty lies in its branch, but its strength lies in its roots." I repeat, tree's beauty lies in its branch, but its strength lies in its roots.
Right.
This applies to any development program. Social workers are just like roots of the tree called development program. Youth, on the other hand, are like nutrients which support its growth. When the nutrients are supplied in ample amount, the tree will automatically flourish. Such is the case with development programs. Youth are considered to be the voice of the nation and the backbone of the nation.
Right.
They are like raw materials to the nation. Younger leaders are more likely to challenge the way things are done and push for an improvement. For instance, I entered this field of public health when I was 21 under National Nutrition Mission. Being an engineer, I never thought of working in the field of public health. But it all happened. Me, along with other young professionals, supported this mission in providing strategies, implementation, monitoring, and reporting at various levels. We had a unique opportunity of leading a team of hundreds of frontline workers and be challenged day in and day out. In my opinion, there should be many such programs coming in the future. These type of programs give an equal opportunity for every young mind of this country to participate in planning, policy making, and hand-holding support at the root level, irrespective of their discipline. Social workers should also conduct programs and activities to pressurize the authorized sector to provide opportunity for the youth to participate in all parts of government and decision-making programs. Even parents should think of letting their children participate in contributing towards nation building.
Right.
They are able to create fascination about a particular development program. This itself is self-sustainable and will definitely attract the youth together. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much.
Definitely. I think you have actually mentioned this was really amazing point, and we all have to accept this. And the parents, which you have told the last point, need to accept that there's ultimate duty is to provide and actually help the nation in the need. So my next question to you is, Aradha, it's a last question. Actually, I must say there's a lot more to learn from you, but today I don't want to take too much of your time. So it's a kind of a request to you is, what will be one piece of advice would you like to give to all the viewers watching this session, how they must keep themselves always healthy and mentally, physically as well, both?
I generally don't believe in suggestions, but I wanted to give one.
Sure.
Choose a job you're passionate about. Job that you love. Job that excites you. And trust me, you will never work a single day in your life.
Right.
The biggest lessons I've learned so far is that we never knew where life is going to take us. It's full of surprises. Instead of closing our doors, it's always better to open them wide and let's welcome life. One thing, never underestimate yourself and your hard work. They may not fetch results immediately, but you will see them definitely. And most importantly, I remember one more quote from Ralph Marston. Happiness is a choice. I repeat, happiness is a choice, not a result. Nothing will make you happy until you choose to be happy. No person will make you happy unless you decide to be happy.
Right.
Your happiness will not come to you. It can only come from you. So stay happy and stay healthy. Let us together make this earth a better place to live. And don't forget to consume adequately iodized salt.
Right. Can't agree more to you. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing all this information with us. And it was a kind of a healthy discussion with you on the topic. We look forward to conduct more sessions with you in future. Thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your important time.
Yeah. Finally, I wanted to thank you, Harsh, for inviting me to this wonderful session. I wanted to express my special thanks and gratitude to Dr. Chandrakant Pandey, sir, who is popularly known as Ideal Man of India. I think you have already interviewed him.
Yes.
For providing me an opportunity to work on deficiency disorders.
All right.
Thank you once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. This was amazing. Thank you so much, sir.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside.